Well, this is Minnesota's latest step to root out fraud in Medicaid-funded programs. Autism centers now must have state licenses. Lou Ragoose explains how the requirement is expected to make a difference. Lou?
Raya, advocates for this change say licenses make it harder for fraudsters to open up new companies, involve others, and pop up in new programs. Plus, they give enforcement options to the state.
At a legislative fraud committee hearing in February, Department of Human Services Inspector General James Clark revealed that just 6 of the nearly 500 autism centers billing the high-risk program EIDBI had applied for the new required provisional license.
Unless this gets cleaned up and really cleaned up, and fast, there's going to be a push probably to get rid of this program.
But by the May 31st deadline, 90% of those centers ended up applying. According to DHS, only 8 agencies that had been actively billing in the last 6 months did not apply.
Without licensing, any business can submit if they're qualified to provide the services and say we're providing these services.
The legislature passed the new requirement last year in an effort to root out fraud. When autism centers weren't required to be licensed, DHS officials say their hands were tied when it came to oversight.
It's a lot harder for DHS to pull the plug and pull on something, on a particular provider, if they don't have a license.
Jillian Nelson, policy director at the Autism Society of Minnesota, says the requirement is a no-brainer.
The whole license thing was always common sense.
This is the first of what we expect to be many indictments and informations.
Since former acting U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson first announced widespread fraud within the EIDBI program in September, just 4 people at 2 different autism centers have been charged. And if the 90% licensing application rate is any indication, the new requirement hasn't scared off many people.
Now, I talked with the senior director at Fraser, one of the largest autism service providers in the state, and she says there is one issue with the provisional license requirement that's being raised. It's raising concern, and that's they think there might not be enough providers available to hire in order to meet these new requirements. So they'll be working with legislators and the DHS to come up with the permanent license requirements in the coming year.
All right, just the latest development in a very long saga. Thank you, Lou.